In a grand mansion buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses, no one even noticed the quiet figure sitting alone in the corner. A deaf guest, invisible to the eyes of the rich and powerful, was overlooked in every conversation, every glance. But behind this unnoticed presence a secret was stirring, one that could change everything. The maid's young daughter, often dismissed as nothing more than a shadow in the household, watched silently, and in her calm, careful way, she held the power to unlock a fortune worth billions. No one suspected that the smallest, quietest gesture could rewrite destinies forever. The mansion gleamed like a palace of perfection, every room meticulously polished, every corridor echoing the whispers of wealth. It was the kind of place where power and privilege seemed untouchable, where the slightest misstep could render a person invisible. The deaf guest, dressed simply yet with quiet dignity, wandered through the halls unnoticed, a shadow among the glittering crowd. To most, they were nothing more than a fleeting presence, an inconvenience to be ignored. Meanwhile, the maid's daughter moved silently through the same spaces, her eyes sharp, her mind always observing. She had grown up in the margins of this world, learning to see what others overlooked, to notice the smallest details that could mean the difference between opportunity and ruin. While others laughed, gossiped, or flaunted their status, she catalogued every gesture, every hidden glance, every careless dismissal. The day had begun like any other, with a lavish breakfast filling the air with the scent of expensive coffee and buttery pastries. The guest sat alone, unaware of the subtle snickers that accompanied every glance in their direction. Wealthy elites mingled, their attention consumed by their own affairs, blind to the quiet presence of someone they considered inconsequential. Yet beneath this veneer of indifference, tension was simmering. For the maid's daughter, this was more than just another day of chores and quiet observation. She sensed the fragile threads of power, the unspoken hierarchies that controlled everything in the mansion. And as she watched the deaf guest navigate this world of polished surfaces and hidden agendas, she realized that what others dismissed as weakness or invisibility might be the very key to changing everything. The pieces were in place, the stage quietly set, and the smallest, most unnoticed actions were about to trigger consequences no one could have imagined. As the day progressed, the mansion's halls became a battlefield of subtle power plays. The deaf guest moved cautiously, attempting to engage in conversations, to offer thoughts, to be seen. Yet every effort was met with polite indifference or outright dismissal. Murmurs floated through the air, comments disguised as casual remarks, yet loaded with disdain. "Oh, they won't understand," someone whispered. "It's useless to involve them." Every ignored gesture, every unnoticed smile, became a quiet assault, chipping away at dignity. The maid's daughter watched closely, her heart tightening with each slight. She understood what everyone else refused to see, that being invisible did not mean being powerless. Her eyes traced the patterns of the mansion, noting who held influence, who underestimated the quiet ones, and who had blind spots that could be exploited. Every discarded napkin, every careless glance, every assumption about the guest's abilities became a map of opportunity. By evening, tensions were rising. Invitations to join conversations were politely withheld. Opportunities to witness events firsthand were subtly blocked. The deaf guest remained poised, patient, silent in the face of repeated slights, yet a quiet intelligence burned behind their eyes, a knowledge that things were not as they seemed. The maid's daughter sensed the moment was approaching. She had long prepared for a chance like this, observing, calculating, and waiting. By evening, tensions were rising. Invitations to join conversations were politely withheld. Opportunities to witness events firsthand were subtly blocked. The deaf guest remained poised, patient, silent in the face of repeated slights, yet a quiet intelligence burned behind their eyes, a knowledge that things were not as they seemed. The maid's daughter sensed the moment was approaching. She had long prepared for a chance like this, observing, calculating, and waiting. With every dismissive gesture thrown at the guest, the mansion's invisible cracks widened. She knew that what the powerful considered trivial, what they ignored as weakness, could be the very leverage that would topple their complacency. When the guest reached a secluded corner, brushing past a table stacked with documents and ledgers, the daughter's chance emerged. No one noticed her step forward, her movements quiet yet deliberate. A simple touch, a gentle rearrangement of papers, a careful adjustment to an overlooked ledger. Small actions, invisible to all but the one who truly saw. The weight of injustice and the thrill of impending change coursed through her. In that moment, the balance of power began to shift. The deaf guest who had been dismissed, mocked, and marginalized, now had a silent ally with keen eyes and a sharp mind. The mansion, with all its grandeur, was on the brink of witnessing the most unlikely reversal. A quiet, deliberate subversion orchestrated by those who others considered insignificant. The night had reached its peak. The mansion, glittering under chandeliers and echoing with laughter, seemed untouchable, yet the air had shifted. Every eye was distracted by trivial spectacles, unaware that the most important act of the evening was quietly unfolding. The deaf guest moved with purpose, guided by the sharp, observant mind of the maid's daughter. Together they navigated the intricate web of power, slipping past arrogance, avoidance, and invisible barriers. At the center of the grand hall lay the key, a sealed envelope, heavy with documents that could transfer ownership of a staggering fortune. No one had noticed it, tucked beneath layers of assumed security, dismissed as unimportant. The elites, drunk on their superiority, had made a fatal error. They never considered that the invisible could act with precision, or that the underestimated could wield influence far beyond what they imagined. The maid's daughter approached, her hands steady, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. With a careful, silent gesture, she shifted the envelope into the deaf guest's possession. Every second felt suspended, the potential for discovery adding weight to each movement. The walls of the mansion, once symbols of untouchable power, now seemed fragile, as if even a whisper could crumble the illusion of control. When the guest finally held the documents, a quiet triumph shimmered in their eyes. The fortune, once the exclusive prize of arrogance and lineage, had quietly changed hands. No one had witnessed the act, yet the consequences were immediate and undeniable. Accounts shifted, balances updated, ownership reassigned, all with the subtlety of a shadow crossing the room. In that instant, the dynamics of the mansion and the world beyond it were irrevocably altered. The deaf guest, long ignored, and the maid's daughter, long underestimated, had rewritten the rules. What had been dismissed as weakness, invisibility, or insignificance had proven to be the ultimate leverage, and as the evening drew to a close, a silent truth echoed louder than any shout. Those who see beyond appearances, who act with intelligence and courage, hold power far greater than the pomp and pretense of the oblivious elite. In the quiet aftermath of the evening, the mansion seemed unchanged at first glance. The chandeliers still sparkled, the laughter still echoed, and the elites remained unaware of the subtle upheaval that had taken place. Yet beneath the surface, everything had shifted. The deaf guest, once invisible and dismissed, now carried the power to influence what had seemed untouchable. The maid's daughter, underestimated for her youth and position, had proven that courage, intelligence, and observation could overturn centuries of privilege. The story of that night spread slowly, carried in whispers and astonished murmurs. Those who had once ignored the quiet presence of the guest now faced the reality that appearances could be deceiving, and that invisibility was not weakness. Every dismissive glance, every overlooked detail, had created an opportunity, one seized by those who dared to act when others assumed they could not. For the maid's daughter, the lesson was simple yet profound. Knowledge, attention, and courage matter more than status, and justice can be delivered quietly, deliberately, and without fanfare. For the deaf guest, it was a revelation of dignity restored, of agency reclaimed, and of the profound truth that the value of a person is not defined by the attention they receive, but by the strength they carry within. And for the audience, the story leaves a question lingering in the mind. How many silent injustices go unnoticed around us? And how many quiet acts of courage could change the course of someone's life if only we were brave enough to act? If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts. Let us know how you'd respond if you were in the maid's daughter's place. Subscribe for more stories that uncover the hidden truths and unseen heroes in a world that often looks the other way.